Congress increased funding for funding to end HIV, but still fell short with that. What happened here?
The latest appropriations bill for the Department of Health and Human Services included an additional $100 million for trying to work toward ending the HIV epidemic. $100 million is a great step in the right direction when you're on the lower end of that looking up. But when you are on the end of those organizations that are looking for funding to actually eliminate the scourge of HIV, it's a $9.8 billion project, and $100 million doesn't even scratch an itch in this case. And that was just the PrEP initiative. That was to get PrEP into more hands, $9.8 billion. When we're looking at the overall goal of removing HIV by 2030, we have 7 years to go. And this is going to talk about billion upon billion upon billion of dollars. And so 100 million at this point is not even getting us in a real sort of momentum phase working to eliminate HIV. There have been some great strides that we have seen. We have PrEP. We have some other forms of treatments that will prevent the spread of HIV. We do know people who have been living with this disease for over 40 years. The statistics say that since 1981, 700,000 people have died from HIV/AIDS, but according to the CDC, 1.1 million people are currently living with it. So we are looking at right now more people living with HIV than those who have died because of it. So that gives us a little bit of hope, but we want to see more. We want to see more from this administration. We want to see more from this this push to try to eliminate this disease. So $100 million sounds like a nice lead in, but it's not even close enough for a good start.
Have you done much research into why they say that eliminating HIV entirely within 8 years is even possible? What is it that have what has come forth as far as breakthroughs with this that put that in the crosshairs of an actual possibility?
No, that is not at all. That's not at all what was behind this. What was behind this was basically the Kennedy promise that in 10 years we would have a man on the moon. We've seen this a number of times since the days of Kennedy, that there is a goal that looks insurmountable, that is tossed out in front of the people, yet it gives a great hope. It gives a great momentum.
Mhm.
So, Kennedy says by the end of this decade, we are going to have someone on the moon. We were able to accomplish that as a country. We saw scientific advancement in the first 5 years of 1960 that made it possible to put, Neil Armstrong on the moon in 1969, and they achieved that goal. Yet in this case, we're not seeing the same amount of momentum moving in the direction of ending HIV/AIDS. Right now, we still have the biggest hurdle of all, and that is getting the pharmaceutical companies to play along. Because as long as pharmaceutical companies feel like they have an open season to set the market wherever they want it, we are not going to see HIV eradicated. We're not even going to see it dented into, because quite honestly, with 1.1 million people currently living with the disease, they have more incentive to keep doing the life-sustaining medicines than they do the eradication medicines.
But I guess essentially with PrEP and the success rate of PrEP protecting against the spread of HIV, that if enough people have it and take it regularly, then that would sort of, the natural result of that would be essentially the eradication of the disease, correct?
No, because according to the CDC, a quarter of new infections are transmitted by people who are not even aware that they have a positive status.
Hmm.
So we're looking at, there's no real way that we're going to see the eradication unless there is an aggressive step in that direction of
Hmm.
finding a way to counteract the virus and eliminating those numbers.
Yeah, because right now it's in the hands of the individuals, right? Getting tested regularly and using PrEP to make sure that you're not spreading or not contracting.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I guess apparently that puts too much of the responsibility in too many people's hands. Whereas, if we can find an inoculation against it or something like this, that would be the way we would truly achieve an eradication.
Right. I mean, moving toward a vaccine would be the biggest step that
Mm.
we could make. For example, a mpox. We're seeing, that disease getting, some traction in trying to be defeated through medical means. We've had COVID, a lot of steps moving along, trying to stay ahead or at least catch up with the COVID virus and how it mutates into its different forms.
Mm.
HIV has been one of those things that it's been a landmine for people to step into, because just the idea of dealing with a population that has been stigmatized and dealing with a population that still carries that stigma is quite possibly, one of the greatest. I saw a quote from Sharon Stone saying that her AIDS activism cost her career, that she was out in front, fighting for awareness, increasing awareness, and trying to get people to contribute to that. And her career was taking a downward slide at the same time she was out there doing that.
Hmm.
So we can see that even allies who are fighting for it were fighting an uphill battle against popularity. They were fighting against, the the idea of, creating a space of compassion for people with HIV/AIDS. So I think we're still seeing some of that. I think we're still seeing that stigma existing, and I think that, we don't have enough popular support to push for that.
Well, it's at least encouraging that we have things like PrEP and there are ads and stuff out there about remembering to get tested. So hopefully we'll look at eventually. Maybe we'll get some more funding at some point.
Well, don't even get me started on PrEP, because that's a whole nother platform of issues, because the variance on cost of that.
Hmm.
For me to get PrEP would be somewhere around $240 a month.
It's out of reach of a lot of people.
Mhm.